When I think about what's special about comparative human development, it's got an intensely interdisciplinary focus in a relatively small intellectual community of faculty and students who really talk to each other intensely and think hard about how to understand human development and human lives in context.
If I had to describe CHD in one word, it would be eclectic.
I mean, it has to be interdisciplinary.
I would say what's often said about the University of Chicago. It's unique.
Comparative human development since the 1930s, for very nearly 100 years, has been a source of revolutionary ideas generation to generation. And many of those ideas you couldn't have predicted ahead of time. It came from a coming together of interdisciplinary scholars who talked intensively to one another and generated whole new ideas and schools of thought.
This is the program that continues to exist and flourishes. It brings together cultural anthropologists, developmental and social and lifespan psychologists. It has sociologists as part of its history. It even has people who work on the biological foundations of behavior.
We do not fit neatly within any disciplinary boundary. We tend to attract students and scholars who think outside the box, and we tend to think that life is too messy and too exciting to think about through the lens of one discipline.
My research examines various ways that race, ethnicity, and socioeconomic status, especially poverty, affects many aspects of development. And being in comparative human development allows me to let the research question guide the direction rather than focus on one disciplinary perspective or one set of methods. I've really deeply become an interdisciplinary researcher because of exposure to my colleagues doing many different methods that I was not trained in grad school, but having learned from them.
If you are interested in studying the mental or the psychological or the subjective, and you feel a little bit uncomfortable about the way it's done in mainstream psychology departments, this offers you an opportunity to study the mental and the psychological in alternative ways.
My research has been primarily concerned with the category and experience of disability. Most of my work has been in India. I'm really interested in this broader question of what does it mean that while on one hand we see increased normalization of disability and increased disability representation in the world and in government laws and institutions and workplaces, we also see efforts to normalize disabled people. We see cochlear implants, we see the emergence of brain implants that are to be coming, which are ostensibly designed to cure or fix or normalize disabled people. And so what does it mean to have these two things operating in tandem? And how do people on the ground, children, young adults, families, how do they make sense of that?
I think that for students, this place offers a really unique education. We think a lot about the core ideas that are being presented in each other's work. And I think in doing so, we make each other's work better because you can't really hide behind the jargon of a discipline in this department. You have to present the idea in its sort of purest form. And I think that filters into how we train our students.
I really thought that CHD's open curriculum seemed like the perfect fit for me because it allowed me to explore tons of different disciplines that I liked individually. I love it so much because it allows students of various backgrounds to take CHD classes or major in CHD. I learned from my peers because they study things other than I do.
I knew that as a scholar, for now and also in my future, that I didn't really feel like I had one methodological home, as indicated by the sheer number of majors I was interested in. I knew that I was interested in interviews and ethnography and archival work because the types of questions I was interested in required more than one method to find an answer.
It's exciting, I think, to be in a space also where there's a sort of diversity of different methodological approaches taken. I feel like terms for how I want to be an anthropologist and how I want to be a social scientist, it's definitely influenced the way I think about my own research. I don't know that there's a certain kind of developmental theme to the work that I'm doing now on youth mental health and college mental health that I don't think would have been there necessarily if I hadn't been in this department.
I'm primarily interested in human communication, and I come at that problem from the perspective of both psychology and linguistics. And in trying to answer my questions, I work with populations of all sorts. I work with children, but also with adults. I work with kids in the US, but I also work with kids abroad. We use experiment-based measures to get at implicit knowledge about human communication, but we also do a lot of naturalistic observation. It was really delightful when I came across CHD as a department, and I realized that this was a place where I could really carve out and develop my own niche.
My research is in sociology. I'm a sociologist, and my work is on Muslim Americans primarily. So I look at issues of gender and how it impacts people's relationships with the Muslim community. Because we're a small department, students don't really fall through the cracks here. We're all very invested in them. We talk about their projects. We think through their projects together. We're excited about their work.
I like to focus on studying causal inference theories and methods because it's so important for any research that have questions about the causality, because in this department we care about the child and the youth development or even beyond the early adulthood, but many questions about what's happening in the environment, in social cultural contexts that are affecting development. So those are causal questions, and you can probe the question from so many different angles. What I'm interested in is how can you nail down the causes.
Today, we're having the Trial Research Conference, which is basically an opportunity for graduating undergraduates and the second-year PhD students to present their own work. We're pursuing really different questions, but at the same time, we're always in dialogue with one another, and I think it kind of pushes the bounds of some of our own fields, but also makes us think really drastically differently from how we might have approached a problem originally.
We really care about moving across levels of analysis. So we actually take the philosophy or the study of the philosophical foundations of the social sciences very seriously. We care about theory, we care about methodology, and we end up emphasizing empirical research that is theory relevant and is more sophisticated on philosophical issues than much research that goes on in the social sciences.
One of the things I was recently able to do is a racial health equity documentary that focuses on maternal and infant health and particularly disparities, the long historical arc of the racial disparities in Black-white maternal and infant mortality. And I'm able to put that in historical context. The reason that I made the documentary is because it was being in a space of not wanting to write yet another research paper and really take all of the research that we have and think about how to communicate that research knowledge to a broad audience rather than a very niche, specialized research audience.
Something that I find really wonderful about CHD is that as researchers, we get to ask things that nobody else will ask.